Hello everyone, and welcome to some training we're going to do about all the stuff that we train over. My name is Doug Bassett. I'm the Senior Microsoft Instructor, and I teach all of the Microsoft classes. But we teach a lot of different classes, and one of the problems that we have is, well, we teach a lot of classes, and a lot of times people don't know what this technology actually does. So if you're viewing this live, feel free to ask questions at any time. If I don't happen to notice that you're asking questions, flap your hands around and get all sorts of aerobic exercise, because I can't see you, but I can hear you. So we're going to be talking about Windows 7, 2008, R2, Exchange, SharePoint, System Center. What the heck is all this stuff? So that's the whole idea. And we're going to go about a half an hour, but I'm going to leave a little time at the end for us to ask any questions and answer questions and do whatever it is that we want. This is going to be recorded, so if you happen to miss it, well, you can view it, and shame on you for missing it. So we're going to start off with what exactly is a client? Well, a client is simply a computer that you use to do stuff. And you could use it for whatever, surfing the web, filling out reports, surfing the web, going out and, looking at the database for all your contacts, surfing the web, all that cool stuff. Now, there's a lot of different operating systems that we have. We have Windows XP, we have Windows 7, and we have Windows 8. Now, there's also other ones like Apple and so on and so on. Most companies are running Windows 7 because it is a very, very, very good operating system. The ones that aren't running Windows 7 are typically running Windows XP or, again, some flavor of Apple. XP's support is ending soon, so people are moving to Windows 7. What about this pesky Windows 8? Well, Windows 8 has a new operating system and a new interface. And unfortunately, when you have a new interface, there is a learning curve for people to understand, how the heck do I get to my stuff? So, in my humble opinion, companies are not going to be moving to Windows 8 anytime soon, because people on their desktops, they want to do their work. They don't want to have to learn a new interface when they just want to get the TPS reports out. So we spend a lot of time teaching people how to get their Windows 7 operating system to work and how to manage it. It's not an end user course, it is an administration course, because us IT folks have to make sure that people can gain access to the stuff that they want. But where is their stuff located? Well, typically it's located on a server, and this is where we get into Windows Server 2008 R2. What exactly is a server? Well, it's a computer that has your stuff. As simple as that. And what kind of stuff can you have on a server? Well, a lot of times you'll have what's called a file server. This will have Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PDFs, cool graphics of cats, as well as your MP3 collection. The idea is that you want to be able to gain access to it from whatever machine you happen to be on. I mean, if you have something local on your machine, you have it copied down into your iTunes or whatever, you have to be sitting at that machine to be able to do anything with it. But by putting it on a server, you can gain access to it from anywhere as long as you have connectivity to the server. Something else that people want to do with these documents is they want to print them. Well, it's too expensive to have printers on everybody's desks, so what they do is they hook these printers up to a server. Then when you print, it goes to the server, out to the printer. Makes it pretty easy and saves yourself a lot of money. Plus, you can restrict who can gain access to, the printer that prints checks. One of the aspects of Windows Server 2008 is security, and this is primarily handled by using something called Active Directory. Active Directory is a role that runs on 2008 R2, and it provides security, it provides control. So when you log in the morning, you put in your username and password, you're talking to an Active Directory domain controller, also known as Active Directory Directory Services. I guess the Department of Redundancy Department got a little bonus that month. But Active Directory Directory Services has user accounts, has group accounts, has group policies, and all that stuff. Now realize, this is kind of the 50,000-foot flyby. Well, heck, in this part it's about the 120,000-foot flyby. There are tons and tons and tons of more services in 2008 R2, things like DNS, WDS, which lets you put out operating systems, WSUS, which helps you do updates, DHCP. We're going to have another little mini training class on all these components, because remember, 2008 R2 is comprised of 5 classes that we teach. So spending, 8-10 minutes on this isn't really going to be enough for you to understand exactly what's going on. Our primary focus is to talk about the operating systems that do other things, the applications, for example, Exchange, SharePoint, System Center. What in the heck is all of that? That is going to be our primary focus. Now, the first one is something that y'all are probably familiar with, email. We have a Microsoft Exchange server. The point of an Exchange server is to allow you to send and receive email. I mean, think about it. If you couldn't do email, how effective would you be able to be at your job? So we have to really make sure we understand as an administrator how Exchange works. Now, when you look at email, it's pretty basic. You get email from the world, the internet. It flows into your Exchange server. When you send email, it flows out to the world to be able to get email to everybody. But Exchange has a lot more than that. One of the basic components we have is what's called an edge transport server. It's our little security device that goes in and does the initial virus check to see if this is virus or if it's spam. Let's say I'm getting email from Rolex, fake Rolexes at Doug.com, I don't want to receive those because it's obviously spam. So one of the things that we can do is we can configure our edge transport server to say, look, if it comes from fake Rolex at Doug.com, don't send it into our Exchange environment. It's probably virus laden and has all sorts of problems. We're going to need to thin that out a little bit. So the whole idea of an Exchange server is to implement email in a secure method. But again, that's the 120,000 foot view. Exchange has lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of moving parts. You have mailbox servers that hold your mail. You have hub transport servers that move the messages from one spot to another. You have a client access server, which is where when you fire off Outlook, it goes up and shows you your email. You have edge transport that does your security. And we also have something called unified messaging. Unified messaging is kind of cool because what it allows us to do is we can go in and we can say, hey, I want to combine my email and my voicemail. So when your phone goes off in the middle of a presentation, it'll go right to voicemail and I can see it via my email. I mean, how cool is that? So there's a lot of pieces and parts, but think about it. If your Exchange system goes down and you happen to be the administrator, we call this a resume producing event. And it's a lot of complex pieces. You have to integrate with Active Directory. You have to make sure it gets to the right spot. You have to make sure that you're filtering out stuff. Maybe you have some compliance where you are dealing with Sarbanes-Oxley or HIPAA requirements where you have certain documents you have to retain. Well, Exchange allows you to go through and do that. Now, think about it. When you're going through and looking at an environment, you may have just tons and tons and tons and tons of servers. And you know that on your client, you want to look at the documents, you want to do your TPS reports, you want to do your expense reports, you want to browse the internet, and your data can be all sorts of different places. We don't want to store it on the local machine because if your laptop gets stolen, away all that data goes. If it happens to crash, again, you've lost everything. So we store it on all these servers. Now, a lot of companies will name their servers different things. You know, small companies, they'll start off, oh, we'll use Disney characters. So you don't know if the data's on the Grumpy server or the Dopey server. Maybe they're using, I don't know, Lord of the Rings names. Personally, I can't spell Lothlorien 3 times the same way in a row. So it's kind of hard to find where my stuff is, even if I know what server it's on. So that's where we get into what's called SharePoint. What SharePoint does is it'll put up customized web pages, and these are called site collections, that will provide you sort of an entryway into your information. You don't have to know if it's on Lothlorien or Grumpy or Dopey or, you know, Mermaid, whatever. You just open up your normal web page, and then boom, there's your data. And that's what SharePoint does. It gathers all the data from all the different spots and gives it to you in one clean interface. Now remember, this data can come from a variety of places. You can have CRM applications, you can have databases, you can have webs, you can have file servers, you can have companies that you're partnering with. Maybe it has a price list or something. And instead of having to know where the data is, it brings it all into SharePoint and you're able to see it in that one interface. Some of the things that SharePoint can do is it can also do document control. I mean, think about it. If I put the report together and I store it on a file server, hey, I think it's all cool. But then Susan comes in and saves the same document in the same place. She just overwrote my document. So one of the advantages of SharePoint is as the data comes in, I have version control. I can go in and I can say, look, I want to check this document out. It's just like checking it out at the library. And when I check this out at the library, nobody else can modify it. Now, they can still read the document, but they can't go in and write over the top of it and lose all of my changes. So then I check the document back in. If somebody wants to write something else on top of it, it keeps the previous versions. So if I need to roll back 2 months that Word document before everybody else got their grubby little mitts on it, I can go in and I can do that. So it makes it very, very easy for me to control my documents. So you gain access to your data, you control your documents, but again, this stuff could be everywhere. One of the other features that we have with SharePoint is sort of like a mini Google. We have an entire search infrastructure that lets me go through and search through all the databases, search through all of my partner documents, search through all of my file servers, and I can find exactly what I'm looking for. Now, one of the big advantages with SharePoint is that if I don't have access to a document, oh, it's the confidential HR pay database, it's not going to show up in my search results. But having the data available and being able to find the data is one of the most important features of SharePoint. But what if I just don't want to go in and search web pages? I want to actually get some intelligence from it. I don't want to find the 15,000 different spreadsheets or the 12 different databases. I want you to present me with a dashboard that lets me interpret the information. It gathers a little data here, gathers a little data there, gathers a little data there. Well, again, SharePoint does that by using what are called web applications. These web applications are going to gather data and information from different places. Here's our sales forecast. Here's our revenue by department. Here is our cost factors. And it puts it into a centralized web page that shows you the exact information that you need, and it updates it real time. So as sales numbers change, as production costs increase or decrease, all of that is going to be displayed in real time. So it's a very, very powerful component, but as you've noticed, it can get rather complex. Now, let me boil something down for you. When you're dealing with systems, whether you're managing one server like we have right here, or maybe I have tons and tons of servers in all these different racks. I have all of the client desktops that are out there. I have guests that are coming in. Maybe they're even bringing mobile devices. How do I manage all of these configurations? Do they have the right software? Do they have the right security? Do they have the right settings? Do I turn the camera off when they go into the R&D lab over in Albuquerque? Well, you can go device by device, server by server, web phone by web phone, and try and manage that. But with shrinking budgets and shrinking departments and all of the problems associated with all of these 900 billion machines, it's almost impossible, especially if you're in a medium to large corporation. So that's where we get into our last component, which is System Center. Now, the idea behind System Center is to help you manage your infrastructure. There's a lot of different pieces to System Center, but the part that is most compelling to the clients and gives you the most control is what's called System Center Configuration Manager. System Center Configuration Manager allows you to manage servers, you can manage desktops, you can manage laptops, and you can also manage these little mobile devices. So let's say somebody steals your iPhone, I can go in and allow you to go to a web page and wipe your iPhone if you need. This is the most complex technology that Microsoft currently has. And as you can see, there are 900 billion pieces to it. In all the Microsoft classes that we teach, this is the most complex, and it's also one of the largest books we have. The printed version is like 750 some pages long, but most of that is all of the 100,000 billion demos that I do to show people how to configure all of this stuff. Now you can look at this and say, oh, okay, I didn't know that it could do that, but let me boil it down for you a little bit. One of the most important aspects and one of the most expensive components that people have to deal with is applications. You have to buy applications, you have to deploy applications, you have to make sure that what they're running is what they're supposed to be running, and is it legal for you to actually have that copy of Microsoft Office. Now, the cool part about this is I can go in and I can use System Center Configuration Manager to deploy applications. I can say you have to have this antivirus software, you have to have this particular version of Microsoft Office. Oh, you're in the engineering department? Okay, we'll make sure that you have this engineering software. And I can even track what software you're running. And, let's say that I installed Microsoft Office, but you never use it. Okay, instead of spending money on that license, I can pull that copy back and then use that license somewhere else, saving ourselves a little bit of money. The whole idea here is that I can manage multiple machines, multiple systems, whether it's servers, laptops, desktops, or even these mobile devices, without having to walk out to that particular machine. If somebody brings in a computer from home, a laptop from home, or maybe we have a guest that comes in, I can go in and I can find out what their configuration is, and if they don't have virus protection, if they don't have the particular hot fixes or updates that are required to access our information without worrying about malicious software, instead of just cutting them off, System Center allows us to go in and say, look, we're going to send you to specific servers called remediation servers to kind of fix some of the stuff that is missing. Or we will just give you access to a subset. Maybe we'll let you just gain access to email as opposed to everything inside of our environment. So it makes it very powerful for us to go through and manage it. Another problem that you run into quite often in a corporate environment is you have all of these systems, but you don't know what they have as far as memory, how much hard drive space, what software they have, what type of data they store on there, what applications they have. And with System Center, we can have these machines go out and do self-inventory. We call it data mining. With data mining, we can go in and find out what settings you have. We can find out what hardware you have, what operating systems, how much memory, how much applications you have installed. I can even go in and find out what's going on with your phone. Maybe I want to disable the camera. Maybe I want to only go in and say only certain apps can run. Maybe we're going to ban Angry Birds. Ooh, hopefully we don't work for that evil of a company, right? But it allows you to do all this management automatically, hands-free. The administrator just sets up the rules, and it's all automatically implemented in your environment. Now, the cool part about this is that it can be scaled to run worldwide. I can have different sites in different locations. They have their own databases. But from the top in our central administration site, I can go in and set all of these rules up, and I don't have to go machine to machine to machine to machine to machine to try and implement this. So if you have more than about, 10, 20, 50, 100 machines, System Center can help you save a lot of time and a lot of effort doing your configuration, making sure all the pieces work. Now, in this little presentation, we've talked about what a client is. We've talked about what a server is. We've touched about email with Exchange. We talked about finding our documents and making sure I can see it in a centralized location with SharePoint. And we showed you how you can go in and really control the madness, control the configuration, control the software, control the licensing from a centralized location using System Center Configuration Manager. What we're going to do now is we're going to open it up for questions. Now, if you happen to be viewing this via recording, talk all you want. It just makes people laugh at you. But you can always email me. Here it is, mentor@stormwind.com, or you can send an email to me directly, doug.bassett@stormwind.com. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shut the heck up and take any questions from our live folks. So, anybody got any questions? And don't bother raising your hand. I can't see you. Just talk. And everybody's looking at each other like deer in a headlight. Who's going to go first? Any Okay, so the question is if I want to run System Center, how big should the company be? Is that correct? Okay. System Center can help just about any size company, but it is a very complex piece of software. So if you have, 10 people, probably don't need it. But if you get more than about 25 to 50 people, it can help you out a lot. Just realize, and this is one of the advantages that we have, it's a very complex piece of software. It has to work with Active Directory, it has to work with WDS and Wsus servers and all that. So you need to go to training. Gone are the days where you can just sit down and noodle it out, because if you try and install this without training, it's not going to work for you. In fact, it's going to make your systems harder to manage. But if you have more than about 50 people, System Center is a good idea. Did that answer your question? Wsus is Windows Software Update Server. Sometimes their names are really weird. But you ever get those little notifications on the bottom that says you have updates? Those are typically coming from Microsoft Update. And the problem is that if I have servers, like in the server room, and I just say automatically update, I could blow up my Exchange server. I could blow up my SharePoint server. What Wsus does is it allows you to, as an administrator, approve changes. And then you can push them out to people, and then they'll only get the changes that you have approved. So the ones that I send to the accounting department can be different than the ones that I send to the Exchange servers. And Wsus lets you do that. Now, Wsus can be installed separately. We talk about that in our 2008 courses. But it also integrates with System Center so that you can have a centralized control as opposed to having them managed separately. Did that answer your question? The question was, what is Wsus? Yeah, it went about 15 feet more than you wanted, right? We also have, since nobody's asking this question, we also have what's called WDS. WDS is your Windows deployment server. It allows you to push out operating systems. So I can take a brand new computer, plug it in, it doesn't have anything on it, fire it off, and it'll automatically pull down the operating system and the applications and get it all configured without the administrator having to go out and touch it. And we'll get more into these, WSUS and WDS, in the next little brown bag that we do that talks about 2008 R2 technologies. Any other questions? Okay, the question is, what certifications tie into these particular topics? There's really two main certifications we have. We have the MCITP, which is your IT Certified Professional, and we also have MCSE. MCSE is kind of the new kid on the block. It used to be Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, and now it's a little different in that they have a heavy emphasis on System Center and cloud computing. So MCSE is System Center and Cloud Computing plus all the 2008 infrastructure. MCITP is specific to 2008 R2, and there's specialties. Like you can have MCITP for Exchange. You can have MCITP for SharePoint. It's a little bit different. Microsoft certifications are changing a little bit, but if you want MCITP, you go through all of our 2008 classes, plus you need to go through and do the client, which would be Windows 7. If you want to go MCSE, then you have to understand the network infrastructure, which is all the R2 stuff, without the applications infrastructure. That's not a requirement for MCSE, but everything else is a requirement. And you have to get System Center. You have to also understand cloud computing. Did that answer your question? Okay, so the question is what about Server 8 or Server 2012? They have an upgrade path, so if you have MCITP and you also have the client, you just take an upgrade exam, and then you can be certified in 2012 as well. But if you just want to go with 2012, they're going to be updating all those to 2012. So do we have 2012 classes? Well, right now we don't, because it just got released to manufacturing. We've got to wait to see how it's being adopted. Most of the exams as of today are not live, so you really can't get that certification. So if you have people who are saying, well, shouldn't I wait for the 2012 stuff? Absolutely not. The reason is that DNS is still DNS, WDS is still WDS, Wsus is still Wsus, Active Directory is still Active Directory. Windows 7 hasn't changed. But you have to understand all these technologies to be able to pass those exams. So if you go through and take what we currently have, hey, you know what? You're going to understand how this works, and then there's going to be a little bit of an upgrade to understand the little twists that Microsoft has with 2012. So if you have people that are sitting on the fence, say, look, it's going to take you about a year to be able to get all these certifications knocked out. And you want to wait a year until Microsoft has all these certifications ready and then start from ground zero? Or do you want to get a solid baseline of information and then just have to tweak a little bit here, a little bit there, mostly dealing with the interface? So are you going to wait a year to get the certifications, or are you going to start on that path right now, and as it rolls over to 2012, you'll be ready to go? Did that answer your question? Yes. Okay, the question is Microsoft is going to be changing their certifications, and again, I'm repeating the questions for the recording. And we have an upgrade exam. What does the upgrade exam do? The upgrade exam is going to take you towards a path of MCSE, but what it does is it gets you MCSA, which is kind of the associate's level exam. So what you do is you get your MCSA now, and the way you do that is you get your MCITP plus you get Windows 7, and then you just take that upgrade exam, and then boom, you're right in that 2012 class, or in that 2012 certification path. Did that answer your question? What was that? What does it pay? Oh, okay. Well, it depends upon the company. But if you're a certified person, one of the problems that Microsoft had is that human resources knew what an MCSE was, because that's what Microsoft had forever. And then they got rid of MCSE and put it into MCITP. And now all the HR people goes, I've never heard of MCITP. It still has to be MCSE. So they didn't have the recognition on it. Now they've been doing MCITP for several years, so now HR understands what MCITP is. But now we have MCSE, so kind of the visual on Microsoft or HR people is MCITP and MCSE are about the same. As far as people who know what the certifications go, if you have folks that are moving into a cloud, then they do want to be able to do that MCSE because it's a lot of cloud computing. We don't currently cover that in the 2008 R2 courses because 2008 R2 really wasn't oriented towards the cloud. So what does it deal with as far as pay goes? MCSE and MCITP are pretty much the equivalent as far as getting hired. If you have a company that's moving towards cloud computing, they're going to be looking for MCSE, but realize you can't get MCSE yet. Not until Microsoft releases the exams, not until the courses are available, not until, you're able to actually learn the technology. So again, people have to learn the baselines of infrastructure. They have to know what DHCP is. They have to know what WDS is. They have to know what DNS is. And we teach all of that. So they have to be able to learn that stuff. And then at the very tag end, that's where cloud computing comes in. Did that answer your question? Excellent. Any other questions? Oh. Okay. So the question is, again for the recording, what pain points do we have? You know, you have people that are doing their jobs. How does the training and certification help them get their weekends back? And it really boils down to this. Back in the day, because I've been teaching this stuff forever and I've been involved in computers since about 1981, it used to be you could just sit down and figure it out. And a lot of companies, their upper management was, you know, if they were a tech company, upper management kind of moved through the tech ranks where you could sit down and figure it out, and now they're managers. And they're starting to come to realize that you can't really just sit down and figure it out. Even something as simple as Active Directory, if you haven't really played with it, or even if you have played with it, you're probably missing about 80% of its capability. By going through training, you learn how to automate a lot of processes. You learn how to use things like group policies. You learn how to use things like System Center, or even if you're not using System Center, being able to use WDS and Wsus and properly optimize your DHCP so that the systems aren't breaking. We show them how to be proactive administrators so that as they understand the tools, because Microsoft has spent a lot of time customizing their applications and operating systems so that it'll work the way that businesses work, because of the automated and centralized control that you have, you don't have to sit there and tweak and tweak and tweak until the wee hours of the morning. The biggest pain point is people don't understand the technologies, so they're trudging along doing the best they can without training, and they're not using the efficiencies that are built into the operating system. Throughout the classes, we show you, hey, this is how you automate it. This is how you can manage 15,000 machines or 100,000 machines without having to go machine to machine to machine to machine to machine. We show them how they can be what's called a force multiplier. What used to take 50 techs can now be done with 20 techs, can now be done with 10 techs. So it saves their company money, but it also gives them their time back because they're not there at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out how to fix something, whereas if they would have implemented the group policies and used these infrastructure components that we teach to automate it, it would just happen automatically. You get the reports, you can be proactive, and instead of sitting there trying to install viruses on Bill's machine, you can be doing fun things like doing imaging, learning cloud computing, stuff like that. So it just saves them, it makes them more efficient at their job and saves them just tons of time, not to mention the fact that their systems aren't blowing up all over the place. Did that answer your question? All righty. 201, 207, 212, who knows what it is, the next version. And again, if you are viewing this on a recording, you can always email me, doug.bassett@stormwind.com. Thanks for coming by, and hopefully we'll see you soon.